Hi everyone. In this video, we'll be talking about the best way to sit, whether that's while you're studying, working, while you're playing in a chamber group, or in an orchestra. You're probably wondering why we're talking about sitting. Many of us sit for multiple hours per day while studying, working, and for musicians, playing while seated. Chances are, though, that no one has ever taught you how to sit. In a study of 720 professional orchestral musicians, an astounding 89.5% of them reported past or current playing-related musculoskeletal pain, with 70% of those people citing back pain as their chief concern. I myself have experienced excruciating back pain after orchestra and chamber music rehearsals and performances, and I've also known many other musicians who have secretly endured the same types of pain. Unfortunately, many of us are familiar with the phrase, no pain, no gain. And sadly, you'll still find many teachers and performers today that feel that skill and technique are hard won through pain and sacrifice. This does not have to be the case, and we can learn to play pain-free with a little education, awareness, and experimentation to see what works well for you and your body. Many people are not aware that the mid-range of your hip flexor is not actually 90 degrees, like a chair would lead you to believe. Depending on your range of motion, if we assume that standing straight up is the 0 degree position, many people are able to move backwards by about 30 degrees, as you can see here. And again, depending on your range of motion, you may be able to lift the knee towards the chest at about 120 degrees. That leaves the mid-range of motion at about 60 degrees. The feeling that you're trying to achieve is very much like that of sitting on the edge of a tall stool or on the corner of a table or a desk. So you'll notice if we sit on a tall stool right on the edge, your lower back will not have to engage in order to support the spine, and neither will your abdominals. Simply add neutral shoulders to this so there is no forward or backward weight that the spine must compensate for. If you're like me, you were probably taught when sitting to have your back straight, chest out, tall spine. And you were probably able to hold this for about 5 or 10 minutes before your back gave out and started to hurt, and then you go into this more slouched position, which probably felt a lot better until someone reminded you, hey, sit up straight. In fact, you may notice people in school, for example, slouching backwards like this. Now, none of that's your fault. And the reason for that is because of the mid-range of our hip flexors. Now, in a standard work environment, ergonomists recommend actually sitting with about a 10 to 15 degree back tilt, right? This allows for a little bit of that hip flexor to be closer to that 60 degrees that we desire so much. But unfortunately, as musicians, we don't really have the ability to do that because we need to be able to shift our weight at a moment's notice. So if you have an adjustable height chair, you can of course raise the height of the chair so we can achieve the 60 degree angle in the hip flexors. However, if you have a fixed height chair like this one, another idea is that you can actually drop your knees by sitting on the very edge of the chair. One thing to watch out for is sitting too far back in the chair, where actually you'll have more of the weight on the backs of your thighs than on your sits bones. And that will actually create more of a backward reclining in the pelvic girdle, which you talked about in a previous Alexander technique video, and we know we don't want that. So it's very important to let the backs of your thighs hang off the edge of the chair so that you can really feel the sits bones supporting all of your weight. So now that we've addressed the position of our hip flexors as well as feeling the weight of our sits bones so we don't have to engage the lower back and the abdominals, the next thing that we want to watch out for is spinal torsion or twisting. So of course we can twist left and right with our spine, but the mid-range of motion is of course with our hips and our shoulders facing the same direction. Now that's not to say that sometimes you may want to twist a little bit, but you should be able to go back to that neutral point at any time. If your position is one where you have to twist for a long and prolonged period of time, then this is not going to be ergonomic. So when playing violin or viola, make sure that your hips and your shoulders are facing the proper direction and you do not have to twist out of the way of, let's say, a stand partner, or you're in clear view of the conductor. The same goes for cellists. You want your hips and your shoulders to face forward instead of constantly being in a state of spinal torsion. So another important overlooked detail of your posture is thinking of diaphragmatic breathing. So of course, in the previous Alexander technique video, we talked about breathing, but this is why it's important. Whenever we breathe in the upper respiratory system, we do get bigger volume here in the chest, which then decreases. How that will affect your cello playing, for example, is because the back of the cello rests on the sternum. When we breathe using our upper respiratory system, this will actually move. Now again, we want to feel that the diaphragm is lowering, allowing the lungs to fill up with air, and then to push out from the bottom of your abdominals up and out. So you may see that the abdominals expand and retract. And as you place your cello in position, you'll notice it does not affect the upper shoulder where it rests on the sternum. Let's also not forget about violinists and violists. In position, if we do not have the diaphragmatic breath and we're breathing from our upper respiratory system, when we breathe in, the whole instrument will rise and fall, making it harder to choose strings and have a really good contact point with the bow. For violinists and violists, we have a unique challenge when playing on the highest string of our instrument. For the lower three strings, we don't have any trouble, but you'll notice when I play the highest string that my adjusting screw of my bow is hitting right here on the top of my thigh. So we have two options really. We can twist, creating spinal torsion, so that we can feel the heel of the palm fitting right in between the knees, or we can drop the thigh a little bit, allowing there to create some space. Either way, trying to play with the knees close together definitely does not work. So make sure you wear appropriate clothing on the bottom half of your person so that you can spread your knees about shoulder width distance and create that space that you'll need for that upper string. As a last tip, if you're ever losing the connection with your sits bones to the chair, you can simply tap your feet, loosening the thigh muscles from the torso, and that will help you more fully and deeply feel your sits bones in your seat. Now remember, even though we've gone over several strategies and ways for you to think about sitting, static tension equals pain. Remember, your body is designed to move, so let it. We hope that this gives you some useful tips and tricks to help you make playing while seated a little bit easier and lots more enjoyable.